Hey, Azure friends. It's another Azure Unsung Heroes or Unsung Heroes of the Cloud, as we like to prefer calling it. Unfortunately, it's only me today. For once, you had to Niels already a couple of times all alone for yourself. This time you have to do it with the other Belgian, the one that is actually staying in Belgium, because Niels had his booster shot today and he's not feeling up to the weather to it. So we all know these things happen. But that
Yep.
doesn't make my guest list interesting. I present to you Ayobami Ayodeji. He's a program manager for the Azure Customer Success team. And today we're going to talk about something related to AKS, but we're just about that, a little bit more about that in a second. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself, Ayobami. Who are you?
Hi,
Who's the man? Who's the man behind the screen?
Hi, everyone. So, yeah, my name is Ayobami. Like you said, I'm a program manager at Azure, and I am very excited to be here.
You are. All right, cool. So, Ayabami, besides, so you're a program manager for the customer success team.
Yep.
What does that entail? What does that actually contain as a role? What do you actually do with that?
Yeah, awesome. So, basically, my team is responsible for technical strategy
Mhm.
for our customer success unit. And what does that mean? Basically, we're responsible for helping our field facing employees be more successful
Mhm.
with our customers. So, some of the things that we do include like building best practices, principles. So, basically, our products are more like architecture and best practices and guidance that our CSS can then take and help accelerate all of our Azure users.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's basically what we do.
and you're pretty young in the company, right? You're only a year in, apparently. You told me just.
Yes,
I was
yeah.
pretty amazed by that because already a program manager, which is really cool. But you had a really weird history when it came down to becoming before coming here. You actually did something completely different, right?
Yeah. I actually did a couple of very completely different things before I started at Microsoft. Right after school, I actually started as an engineer. So I studied industrial engineering and I worked as an industrial engineer at Chrysler for a couple of
Cool.
years. So there, I actually got to build really fast cars in production. So that was a lot of fun. I then decided that I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to have more impact in the plant, so I moved on to Magna, which is
Mhm.
also an automotive company, but they make car parts as opposed to cars. And then I was like, okay, well, what's next for me? Well, how about I be a project manager and see how that works out? So I did that for a bit at Magna, and then I was like, okay, what if I can do this in tech, right? Like be like a project manager in tech. So that basically took me on a whole journey where I ended up studying data science, working as a data scientist for a year and a half at TD Bank, and somehow I find myself back as a PM at Microsoft.
Pretty cool. That's a pretty cool story. Going from racing cars into just the parts, and then yeah, that's like a cool journey that you went through. That's pretty cool.
Hmm.
And of course, all this knowledge you can still use somehow. I mean,
Oh yeah.
you probably have some mechanical, electrical engineering background. So who knows? Maybe next year you'll be in the surface unit for all we
Who
know.
knows? Exactly.
That's pretty cool. So, and besides working, I hope you do something else too. Anything that you do
Yeah.
for spare time?
Honestly, like COVID has changed a lot of what I do in my spare time. I think before COVID, there was a lot of going out, hanging out with friends type
Mhm.
things. Spending time with family. But these days, I mean, I do a little bit of that actually still, but not as much as before. What else do I do? Well, I play Xbox. So
What
I'm a
else?
huge yeah. So I'm a huge Xbox fan. I do play a lot of like single player story driven games where basically you have to like tackle complex challenges. And what I actually find is it helps a lot with strategy, right?
Mhm.
Because a lot of the time you have to solve these puzzles, like figure out how to like put these things together, maybe defeat the boss or whatever it is. Like But the other thing it teaches you is resilience, right? So as a programmer, sometimes it's difficult to figure out where the bug is, right? And then
Hmm.
sometimes it can be very, 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 very frustrating.
Yeah.
But having that history of like being like beaten down, by the big bosses, trying to figure out how to like, beat the games. You fail so many times, but you just keep getting back at it and keep
Yeah.
trying. And like, that resilience actually,
Just like an average day in the life of a developer. Yeah, I get you.
exactly, exactly. So honestly, like I've had a lot of like benefits from like playing games. I also find that it relaxes me. So yeah, it's fun.
Okay. So, anything in particular? Are you looking forward to Halo Infinite by any chance?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, I
Only
think.
just a couple of more days. December 8th it will
Yeah,
be. Yeah. Looking
yeah,
forward.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's gonna
All
be
right.
that's gonna be epic.
No, it's more Xbox, Microsoft Studios, not Epic Games.
No, 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 no. I'm saying
For
it's
the
gonna be
bookers.
epic.
Yeah, sorry. That's my dad jokes. I mean, Nils doesn't allow. Now he's not here. I have to take the opportunity.
You get to do it. Yeah,
I get to do
awesome.
it.
I love it.
He's still gonna he's still gonna hate me for this one, but okay. Anyway, so all jokes aside, today you're gonna talk about what you've been working on lately at Microsoft. It's the enterprise scale landing zones for AKS, right? This is
Yeah.
what you've been focusing on last period. I don't know how many months or the entire year. I think I have no idea. So tell us about your little baby. What have you been working on, and what does it? Where is the benefit for us in all these things? Can you enlighten us, put us up to speed for those who don't know what an enterprise scale landing zone is?
Yeah, definitely. So, as we all know, Kubernetes can be quite difficult,
Hmm.
complicated, right? There's a bit of a learning curve when it comes to Kubernetes, and then there's a whole different learning curve when it comes to doing Kubernetes right. At Microsoft, we have Azure Kubernetes Service, which basically allows you to have this scalable, a cloud platform, managed platform that makes a lot of that really easy for you. You don't have to do a lot of like manual setup and things like that. AKS actually makes a lot of that really, really easily, and actually integrates really, really well with the rest of our Azure services. But to make your Kubernetes cluster secure and safe and resilient and so on, you have to build it the right way. You still have to build it the right way. So, what we found was some of our customers have challenges figuring out how to best architect their
Hmm.
cluster. Even at the beginning, right? We have a lot of Azure services, but some of the services are actually really critical to ensure that your Kubernetes clusters are safe and secure, and
Yeah.
resilient and highly available, and so on. So that's basically where enterprise scale landing zones come in. Enterprise scale landing zone is actually a program that we run at CSU, and that helps customers adopt Azure really, really rapidly. So
Yeah.
with enterprise scale landing zone, you can basically have a secure Azure environment where you already have your networking, identity and access management, have your management group set up, and basically it helps you have a secure environment where you can then have your AKS cluster and
Yeah.
everything else that you have in there that helps you secure that. But once you
Yeah,
have
it's a
this
full
environment,
embodiment. It's a full embodiment of the cloud adoption framework, right? I mean, it's the implementation
exactly,
of that, right? Yeah.
exactly. So now, assuming you have your environment, or maybe you have a different environment, it doesn't have to be an enterprise scale landing zone environment, but say you have some kind of environment, and now you have a new workload or something, and you want to have a secure, well architected AKS cluster. Where do you start, right? So that's basically where enterprise scale for AKS comes from. I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen just so you have some
Yeah,
idea
sure.
of what that looks like.
Yeah, a picture says more. A picture says more than 1,000 words, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's do this. So enterprise, can you see that?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
coming. Here we are.
So So Enterprisescale for AKS, basically, it takes the Enterprisescale landing zone to a whole different level. What it does is it tries to focus on what gets deployed within the landing zone subscription. Like I said before, you don't actually need to have all this to use Enterprisescale for AKS, but this picture basically shows how it fits within the Enterprisescale landing zone framework. So here you can see the AKS cluster. We also have the other supporting services that helps make your AKS cluster more secure. So for example, we generally recommend that you don't store secrets by just
Mhm.
creating Kubernetes secrets. You can store your secrets in Key Vault and actually use the CSI driver to get the secret into your Kubernetes cluster. We also recommend that you use a private container registry to make sure that you have the high availability required for your business. And also you have a lot of features, like, for example, being able to scan the registry and for security vulnerabilities and things like that. So basically, Enterprisescale for AKS takes all of the very important components, Azure components, that you need to be successful, and packages it up and makes it really, really easy for you to get started on secure AKS clusters.
Okay, it's basically AKS don't ride in a box. Comes down to
Exactly.
it. Yeah. Okay.
Basically, yeah.
So, and the advantage that you get is that also because it's enterprise scale. Uh, how does it work? Do you base yourself on a starting point, or do you actually scale immediately for a workload which is really really high, or is it just build up for any of those?
It actually is actually a build up for any of those, right? So you can basically start with quite a few nodes, so it doesn't have to be a very big cluster at the beginning.
Mhm.
When you actually go through our reference implementation, which I'll show in a minute, it actually helps you with just a few nodes, just to get started, and then it makes it easy for you to scale it, right? So it considers things that could go wrong potentially when it comes to scaling, and make sure that you're actually answering or ready to answer those questions when you get there. So basically, the way this works is divided into these critical design areas,
Mhm.
and for each critical design area, you can actually take a look at it. And you see that it talks about some of the things to consider when you're developing your architecture, as well as some recommendations, right?
Okay.
So for example, let me just show one more. Governance disciplines actually goes into more details and talks about some of the attack surfaces and things to consider. And then as you keep going on, at the bottom you then have the design considerations as well as the design recommendations. And the best part of this is, as we all know, the cloud continues to evolve really, really rapidly. So we
Yeah.
actually have a team of cloud solutions architects, consultants, architects, even engineering, basically contributing to some of our documentation as well as our reference implementation. So as we find more use cases and we find more scenarios and that our customers actually need help with, we incorporate that into this best practice guide.
Can I ask a really stupid question? Is this also based on the Azure Security baseline for Kubernetes Service? Is that also implemented there?
Yes. So basically, this is based on the security baseline. So when we take a look at our reference implementation over
Yeah.
here, it's actually on GitHub. You can take a look at it here. It's based on our security baseline, but it basically builds on top of it.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so basically all the best practices from there are also incorporated into this. And we're actually looking at working with the team to basically merge them together so that there's just one entry point for all of our AKS customers.
Yeah. Oh, that's neat that you're going to integrate both of them and yet you're going to work together and merge everything into one single baseline. That's useful because else customers can be a little bit like confused if you see one and you see another one. It could
Yep.
be confusing. Okay, and so walk us through it. How does it then work behind the scenes? How do you deploy it? How do you get started? What you need? Tell me
Definitely. So what you need,
if you get the screen
let
back.
me, oops, there we go. Okay, so so basically what you need to get started is an Azure subscription.
Of course. Yep.
That's basically what you need. So as long as you have an Azure subscription, you can deploy this. So the way it works is it's divided into scenarios. Customers can basically go ahead and pick whichever scenario makes sense. We also have multiple deployment options. Let me take a minute to actually show what this bicep accelerator looks like. So we have this repository, which is basically all about step-by-step guide
Mhm.
for you to follow. The advantage of this is as you take it step by step, you actually learn the intimate details of everything that you're deploying, and it's much easier for you to debug if you were to run into any issues in the future, right? But a really
Yep.
quick start, a place to start with a secure cluster. You can actually go through our Bicep Accelerator. It basically uses Bicep, our IAC offering, and helps you create a secure cluster in a few minutes, in a few clicks. You can actually have a very secure cluster. So I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. So it's a part of the Enterprisescale for AKS, like I said before. And the way it works is use the helper, and it gives you all these options, right? So you can say, I want to manage environment, right? For example, I want a cluster with additional security controls, or for example, I want a private cluster, right? And then you go ahead, you can put some cluster details there. So for example, here you can put the name of your cluster. Right? Cluster details can say, okay, we want the SLA guaranteed cluster, for example. We want auto scaling. Initially, we want to have 6 nodes, for example, right? We can say, what's the node size I want to use? You can pick one of these. We want to go with ephemeral disk. And then you can pick single zone, across different availability zones and so on. And basically, you can have an AAD integration. Once you basically go through all these different options and select what you need for your specific use case, you can go back to deploy. And all you have to do is create a new resource group and run this command right here, and that's it. You basically have your secure cluster. It actually has all the different things that you need. So for example, it has application gateway, right? It has ACR, Azure Container Registry. It has Key Vault, right? So
Yep.
in 30 minutes, literally 30 minutes, you can basically run these commands and have a secure cluster. So
That's that's a lot of time that you saved instead of doing it manually. Because I mean, the setting up the AKS alone already takes you like that time, apparently. So
exactly, exactly. So that's actually really cool. But if you really want to go deeper into it and basically understand everything that you're doing, we also have our Kafka from landing zone, which is production ready implementation of using Terraform basically, and takes you through the process of using Terraform and the Kaf Terraform based modules that you can then use to create your environment. So for those who are really, really advanced with Terraform, you can definitely check this out. It's an option. But
yeah.
for today, I want to focus on this one, which basically gives you 3 different scenarios. This one is mainly about policy. So if you already have a cluster, you can basically deploy this initiative, and it will tell you what's wrong with your cluster. Like, how can you fix it real quick, right?
That's nice. Yeah.
Um, Exactly. This one is basically really based on the security baseline, which you talked about before. This one is similar, but it uses a private cluster. And here it actually tells you, basically the architecture of what we're going to be deploying. It tells you the core components that you're going to be deploying. So, for example, we're going to be using Azure Bastion. You need Azure Bastion because your key vault as well as your container registry are only accessible from by private link. So you need to have a computer that's in the same virtual network or a
Yep.
paired virtual network to your ACR, as well as your cluster, because it's a private cluster, right? So it doesn't have a public facing IP. You can only access it from within the virtual network. So you basically have to use Azure Bastion, or there's various options you can use.
Yeah.
And then it talks about how you have three different options, right? So you can go with ARM. If you're an ARM user, you can use Terraform. Let me show you what the ARM looks like. Actually, let me show you what the bicep looks like. So basically, it tells you, step by step, literally what you need to do. It
Hmm.
shows you how to create a group that basically you would then grant access to the cluster. So you want to have to make sure that this group, um, you already are a part of that group, or you can add yourself to that group to make sure you do have access to that cluster. You can also, and then it takes you to the different steps, right? So the first step basically is to create a networking hub. If you already have a networking hub, then you don't need to deploy this. But basically, run these commands. You can actually find the bicep files that you're running. So you can actually go through, the repository, and you can actually see within networking hub the different bicep files. So using this, you can actually learn how to use bicep, for example,
Yeah.
and you can actually tweak this bicep code to meet your specific needs. So that's basically how it works. It takes you through the steps, and at the very end, you deploy the AKS cluster, and then optionally, you can also deploy the workload that comes with it.
It's pretty neat. It comes pretty complete, especially if you have all the different choices between the different deployment types, like Terraform, ARM, or Bicep. I mean, a lot of
Yep,
people are looking at either of those three. Today, even
exactly.
you have the opportunity to create Bicep. You can have the opportunity to create ARM out of Bicep. So there's a lot of things that can actually go wrong here, and having this as a guidance is pretty neat. So that makes it, yeah, that makes it really useful. So I have another question for you, and this probably will come as a surprise, or I don't know if you can answer this one. But
Sure.
seeing that we're doing a lot of stuff in a hybrid mode, and that we're also deploying now Kubernetes clusters inside of Stack HCI and inside with Arc, how do you see this evolving with enterprise landing zones, and are you gonna cope with that in the near future? Because you can like treat them like private clusters maybe, or how do you see this? And is there any work going to be happening on that level?
Yes, and that's a really good question. So basically, I'm actually a part of the app innovation team. When it comes to Kubernetes, I'm focused on AKS and ARO.
Hmm.
But we do have a sister team, which is the infra team, and they are actually working on something very similar to this, but they're actually working on enterprise scale for Arc for Kubernetes, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, when it comes to Arc for Kubernetes, that team is actually working on that. But when it comes to Azure Stack HCI, so AKS HCI, which is also a hybrid option, basically it allows customers to run AKS clusters, right? So you still have that AKS managed experience on-prem. So one of the options is to use Azure AKS HCI. We are actually working on a scenario for that as well. So
Yeah.
as a part of enterprise scale for AKS, we will have a scenario for customers who want hybrid, right? Or who want to have the AKS running on-prem with Azure AKS HCI.
Okay, because it would make sense because some of these things have common ground. So you could probably do some generic work with there where that can be used over everything. I mean, I can imagine that you also are looking for a different scaling mechanism, like involving KIDA and all these mechanisms that can help you to build a better, resilient and better scalable cluster environment. So I didn't see that coming up, but is that also something that you're going to put in there, or is this just optional because that's typically involving Helm charts that need to be deployed, and it's more on an applicative level and more on a less infrastructure level? Is there anything that you're looking at from that point of view?
Yes, so definitely we are looking at basically providing some guide around scaling, like custom scaling using KDA. So that is definitely on our roadmap. What we have right now is how to get you started the right way, or how to scan your current cluster to see if there's any vulnerabilities and any ways that you can actually improve that. So that is, we're definitely working on that. It's when I said that we're working to merge the secure baseline with enterprise scale for AKS. That's actually part of the initiatives that we're going to be working on. So, for example, things like day two operations, right? Cluster upgrades. How do you securely upgrade your cluster? How do you deal with release management, right?
Yeah.
And then just like you said, custom scaling with SCADA. How do you do things like that? So those are all going to be a part of enterprise scale for AKS. We do have big ambitions. We're trying to provide as much, make it as easy as possible for customers to use AKS. So yeah, those things are definitely on the roadmap.
Is there already because you're talking about now releases and upgrades and stuff like that? Is there already stuff foreseen from a CI/CD perspective, from a DevOps perspective that you have already in there, and even a GitOps perspective? Is that already
Yeah,
foreseen
sure.
there, or is it still working on that one?
We actually do have some GitOps things there. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so back here, I'm going to go to the Bicep Accelerator page. This will be a part of this main repository soon. But for now, let's take a look at this. So here we actually have some CI/CD best practices actually.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so basically here you have a pretty advanced, a pipeline, GitHub Actions pipeline, where we go over validation, deployment, post deployment config, things like that. We actually run a smoke test. We do deploy a very simple application and actually test it out as a part of the CI/CD pipeline. So you can actually take a look at it right here. And also you can take a look at it in our workflows here as well.
Well, it looks
So you
pretty
can
nice.
actually, yeah, so you can actually get started on that today if you wanted to.
Cool, out of the box, and it even has some linking because I have the image open on my screen too. So linking to the well architected framework apparently to do some checks there. That's pretty neat. Anything in regards to the integration, because since you're using GitHub Actions, anything in regards to Microsoft Defender for Clouds and the integration with GitHub there that you're already doing out of the box, or is that something that we need to do ourselves?
So we haven't really looked at that from a GitHub perspective.
That's actually more Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So Security Center before the name change, they have an integration with GitHub for Kubernetes and for containers that can scan the environment.
That's actually very interesting.
Yeah. So
yeah, if I'm being honest. So that integration with GitHub, I actually haven't heard of that, so that's very interesting. What I find is whenever I talk, because we do have a lot of our customers already using this, and we do get a lot of feedback from our customers, from our CSAs, things like that. So what we actually find is this. Every time I talk to someone, there's always a new idea. It's always a new idea. And as a product manager, we have to prioritize a lot of those things and figure out, okay, what do we want to focus on first, and then. But that sounds very interesting. We do have guides, part of our documentation, where we do talk about using Azure Defender. Azure Security Center actually. So basically, using Security Center as a part of your on the cluster itself, not on the CI/CD part. So that's definitely something we can look into in the future.
Okay, cool. Well, it's already a big box with a lot of tools and a lot of capabilities. You clearly have a roadmap still because you clearly stated some of your wishes that you want to do. Is there anything else that you want to talk about into that context that you haven't shown yet, that you still want to show, or are you good for now?
Well, I just wanted to say we do have people using it already and getting a lot of values. We have our partners, right? Our Microsoft partners, consulting companies, also getting on board with this. Basically, they're taking it and using it for their customers as well, right? They're putting it as a part of their toolbox to accelerate their customer engagement. So we do have a lot of people using it. If you have any use case or suggestions on how to improve this, feel free to create an issue on our GitHub repository, and we'll definitely take a look at those issues and prioritize them.
Maybe just give the repo name and the repository where you want those issues to be created, and then people can watch and create issues if they're gonna try it, because that's always good to have feedback, right?
Yes, definitely. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and share that. So the repository is Azure / Enterprise Scale for AKS. Let me just share my screen one more time, just to show what that looks like. Yeah, so that is what the GitHub repository is, and you see we actually have 3 issues right here. Let's see. Yeah, so we do have some suggestions here already. So you can go ahead and actually create issues, or you can actually create a pull request, and as a token of appreciation, you get your face showing up right here.
Yay, your badge. That's cool.
Yeah,
All right, so
you
it's
can
still a community.
contribute.
It's also a community effort, which is really, really cool. So we love that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
exactly.
Cool. Well, thank you for bringing your unsung hero to our little show. I would say I already wish you the best for the holidays that are about to come. I mean, we're still only on the beginning of December, but I'm guessing Christmas will be just around the corner. Um, it was fun having you, Ayobami.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, Nils, who introduced you to me, isn't here today, but he will pick up with you anyway. Don't worry about it. He's chatty enough. Yeah, and I would say stay safe. Keep yourself sane as much as possible. Game on. And with that being said, I think it's time to close down for tonight's episode. And I hope to see you all within the next episode. I think we are now at darn it! I didn't even kind of mention what number of episode we have today. Uh, so but yeah, but we will see each other for the next episode somewhere in 2 weeks. Okay. All right. And this was
Thank you.
episode 15, by the way. All right. See you all in just a few weeks. Bye bye.
See you. Bye.